I begin my questions, I just have 3 yes or no questions that I ask standardly. So I'm going to ask these, and if you could both respond. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear before the committee or designated members of this committee and other appropriate committees of this Congress to provide information subject to appropriate and necessary security protections with respect to your responsibilities?
I do.
Yes. Do you agree to ensure that testimony, briefings, documents, and electronic and other forms of communications of information are provided to this committee and its staff and other appropriate committees in a timely manner?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you. And finally, do you know of any matters which you may or may not have disclosed that may place you in a conflict of interest if you are confirmed?
No.
Good. Okay. I'm going to start with questions, and I'm going to start with Katherine. Scarlett first. You've held significant positions in the federal government relating to NEPA, so you know this well, and permitting processes. In each of these roles, you've developed experience of what's working and what isn't. So, given your expertise, what has motivated you to take on this role, and how has your past experience prepared you for this?
Thank you for that question, Chairman Capito. I was excited to take on this role mainly because all 3 branches of the federal government recently have indicated that the NEPA process is broken and needs to be reformed. As I stated in my opening statement, I have spent nearly the last decade working on the interagency process and trying to get the environmental review process more efficient and more timely. So given the directive of Congress, I wanted to return to CEQ so that I could faithfully implement those amendments to the National Environmental Policy Act.
Well, I think the response of all 3 branches being dissatisfied with where we've been and where we are, we need certainty more than anything. And I know with you at the helm, we can get some of that. Let me ask you a subsequent question. In Division C, Title III of the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023, Congress passed the first large-scale bipartisan changes to NEPA in almost 30 years. However, it is widely viewed that the previous administration did not faithfully implement the changes in NEPA included in Division C, Title III of that law. As members in both chambers and both political parties continue to seek reforms to support more efficient environmental reviews, will you commit to faithfully implementing, this is important, I think, to both sides of the dais here, any additional permitting and environmental review reforms passed into law consistent with the statutory language and the intent of Congress?
Yes, Chairman, I do commit to faithfully implementing any new provisions passed by Congress.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall, my ranking member took you to task pretty good in his opening statement, I would say. But one of the statements that he made, I just wanted to give you a chance to respond, because he mentioned that your wish would be for it to make it easier for the polluters to pollute. Is that a true statement in your opinion?
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to respond to that. And I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you earlier. No, that is not a true statement. As I mentioned in my opening statement, when I first day on the job, well, the second day, I actually had an all-staff meeting with all of R-W.Va and told them that it was my goal to continue to enforce the law and that we would continue to enforce it. And I think the record bears that out. And the administrator, when he had his hearing on the budget, was able to share some statistics that show that R-W.Va and EPA have continued to enforce the law. So I'm happy to get into those, but I think they show, for instance, on civil case conclusions, that there are far more in the time of this administration than the previous time of last year. And on the criminal side, there are also some very compelling statistics that show there have been 4 more case conclusions, including sentencing and criminal penalties during the time of this administration.
Yeah, let me ask you about the Superfund cleanups, because you mentioned this in your opening statement, and how to improve. We've spent a lot of time trying to improve the CERCLA implementation. We have some Superfund sites in our. You mentioned they're on the books. I'm sure you do too. On the books for years, and never quite seem to get there. Will you have a direct role in negotiating these agreements, and how would you approach the use of these tools to accelerate our cleanups?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So Superfund Enforcement is a priority of this administration, of the administrator, of the deputy administrator on down to me when I was the acting assistant administrator, and if confirmed, would continue to be a major priority of my tenure. So I think that we would use all of the tools available. I know that this committee had a hearing not too long ago on Superfund and Superfund enforcement, where some of those tools were discussed, including various agreements like mixed funding agreements. So I think that we would continue to use all of the tools available and push it forward. I know the Office of Land and Emergency Management has a goal of expediting cleanup, and my commitment would be for OECA to be right there with them, increasing the pace of remediation and making sure that the Superfund program is funded through appropriate and aggressive enforcement.
Coming from a state much like Ohio, where we were basically major parts of the industrial revolution, major manufacturing sites that are now have gone dormant and are really ripe for economic development, but cannot get through the environmental, the Superfund, if they've been designated. This is extremely important to really the heartland of the country that powered this nation and really brought us to where we are today, to be able to be part of the new revolution of technology and other things that are coming and advanced manufacturing. So I appreciate your attention, and I'll turn to